So let's get this started. We are right on the hour here. And so first of all, I'd just like to welcome everybody that's attending the gathering today. Thank you guys so much for setting aside some time in your schedule to be here. We've designed this to be as inspiring and as useful as we possibly can at this very urgent and critical time, so that you have the resilience and the strength in your people strategy to rebound and to grow your people's performance and organizational objectives. At the end of the hour, just a couple of quick things here as we're beginning. At the end of the hour, we've also got something that we'd like to give you that has proven to radically strengthen your hiring, your development, and people objectives. There's no cost to this, no catch. Something that we want to do and be generous with. Jonathan will deliver that right at the end, so stick around. And just as important, we'll have some conference swag as well. So even though it's an online conference, even though it's a digital conference, we want to get some swag your way. So Hannah's going to send you a bottle of our Titus wine, or if you prefer a mystery item of conference swag, we'll get that to you as well. Since what's a conference without some good swag? And all that we actually ask is just that you let us know how you liked the event, because we want to be teachable, want to be learners, and as many of these as we do, we always want to be improving. So just another quick word of housekeeping. This is a 1 hour lunch, a quick fire jam-packed gathering. Please listen in, take the quality decision to put your phone on silent, turn off your notifications for best learning practice. Want you to get the most out of this as possible. Ask questions in the chat box as well, and we'll endeavor to answer them. We've got 3 speakers for you today. Let me get to that slide here. Here they are. We've got 3 speakers for you. Just by way of quick introduction, this is Jonathan Reynolds, our CEO, our man of fire, our chief care officer, the man with the plan, leading Titus Talent Strategies with empathy and exceptional communication. At this time, we've got Kaylee Worth, our director and talent specialist. Kaylee's a phenomenal leader and a developer of people, a great communicator, speaker, who's kindly given us her time today. And Tim Hagen, founder of Progress Coaching, known as America's #1 workplace coaching expert. And myself, I'm Dan Romer, performance marketing manager here at Titus Talent, also known as storyteller, ruckus maker, and I will try not to make too much of a ruckus for you, but get out of your way. And as I mentioned, just as a second reminder, place your questions in the chat. We will endeavor to get to as many of them as we possibly can. So thanks for being here. I'm going to hand over to Jonathan Reynolds here for our first 15-minute session, and he'll take us through some of his content before we move on to our next speaker, and we'll go through this rapid fire. So Jonathan, handing over to you. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Dan. Hey, it's great to have everyone here. Really appreciate the opportunity to share with you, speak to you, hopefully give you some wisdom nuggets and equipping for the days ahead as we start to rebound from this crisis. This crisis will come to an end, and we have an opportunity to rebound in strength with clear vision and clarity of direction for our people. Having a people strategy is so absolutely critical. Because it's the people that are going to be pushing buttons, leading people, directing people, interacting with your clients and customers. You got your business results, that's what you want to be. You got your strategy to get there from a business strategy, and the people strategy right in the middle is absolutely paramount for your success in rebound. So I want to just talk a little about that. I read recently a statistic that came from the Predictive Index. They assessed about 600 or 700 executives, and in one of their big report was 9% of companies flourish after an economic turndown. And these are from three different economic cycles that we've been through, the data pulling there saying, what does that mean? I mean, that's a shocking stat. I want to be one who flourishes. So I want to dig right in there and say, what do I need to do to be a company that flourishes? I lead a team. I have the privilege of leading a team that's 100% remote. We've been running remote for about 8 years now. There's a 10-year-old company. We chose to go all remote, all mobile. And so we didn't skip a beat on this. And it's been great to share some of the best practices around how to manage and lead a remote workforce. But one of the things I've seen is companies that have really failed in crisis and around us. And I don't mean it as a dig. I think we all respond and react in certain ways in crisis, and ways that can actually catch us off guard, thinking, wow, where did that come from? Why do they act that way? Why do they speak that way? Why do they handle the situation like that? But one of the big reasons I see that we can get into panic, we can do crazy things in panic, is because we don't respond with a clear head, and we forget who we are. We forget our values. We forget the plumb line of the decisions we make in our life. For companies who, we can have our values written out on our website or maybe some employee manual and it's buried somewhere, bring those values to the surface. How do we make our decisions? Why is it we do what we do? What is the purpose and the reason for that which we exist? Who started this company? Why did they start it? They started it probably because there was a problem in the world and they wanted to fix it. They wanted to provide a solution or a value or a service or a product which helped people. So going back to the origins of why do we even exist as an organization? What is our purpose and what are we trying to achieve here? And how are we doing it? By the values in which we say that we live out on a day-to-day basis. It's those things that in crisis can get squeezed and under pressure so much that we make poor decisions. I think a great example of that is Enron. Back in 2001, you remember Enron lost $74 billion in a big scandal and a scam. And I remember back then at the time thinking, look at their values. Look at their values. Communication. They said we have an obligation to communicate. Another one was respect, that we treat others with great respect in the way we'd want to be treated. And lastly was the great word that so many companies have on their value, mission, and statement is integrity. That we're going to be honest. We're going to be ethically unwavering. We're going to be sincere. All of those got thrown out of the window. Now, there was crisis. There's a whole bunch of dynamic going on. I won't unpack that for you. But it's how we handle crisis, how we handle people, how we handle our teams in a crisis. Recently, I just heard it's the way you care for your people during this time will be your talent brand for the next 10 years. Your talent brand in the marketplace will be set on course by how you treat your own people right now, with dignity, with respect, with care, with the prioritization of they're going through similar panics that you're going through, the what ifs. Now, I mean, these are real things. We can't sugarcoat some of the challenges that we face. Many of you have had to make really tough decisions with furloughs and layoffs and all kinds of tragic things for your people. But to actually be really honest and treating them with dignity and respect and care, that maybe it's them, it's maybe their dependents who are relying upon them, that company that you work for, mum or dad or whoever it is, the feeling of stress that is upon them. How are we caring for those people as we navigate through these times, even when there are tough decisions that have to be made? And go back to your values. We have to outcare the competition right now, not only from sales and all of that kind of stuff, but also the competition for people. Coming out of this, and the rebound strategy is a lot of companies are going to take advantage of the talent. Those who are growing and those who are coming out of a rebound are going to take advantage of the talent market. With 30 million unemployed people, many of those who are, and not to diminish the fact that they're wonderful people, etc., but some of the A players are still working. But it's the A players that made it through the furloughs and didn't get furloughed, who are going, I don't know if I like how my company is treating the rest of the people, my colleagues around me, my friends. I don't know, I feel kind of yucky inside here. If somebody called me right now, I might consider jumping ship. So just being aware of how we have to outcare our competition, outcare those who might want to steal our people for us. Yeah, because there's still going to be talent thievery going on. Recruiters, poachers, people who are going to be looking to upgrade talent. So the way we care for our people right now will set your talent brand for the next 10 years. So really, really important. There's a huge opportunity for greater engagement during this time, human connection. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to actually look at your people strategy right now. Okay, so the future, I think this is huge, kind of choosing what the future of your organization is going to look like from people. So fast forward here into the 2021, 22, what do we want our people to look like? What do we envision that looking like as far as our company growth, hopes, dreams, strategies, and plans? And what type of people are we going to have on the team? Are we going to have a people that says, we came through that crisis and you treated me really well. You treated me with dignity, respect, and I'm going to give you back my loyalty. I'm going to give you back my passion and my overachieverness. I'm going to give you discretionary effort above and beyond. I'm not going to give you what you gave me, which was minimal communication, minimal loyalty, minimal commitment of, you know, whatever will be, will be. If we got to let you go, we got to let you go. That kind of feeling like, well, I'll give you that back then. I'll give you kind of, well, if I've got energy, I'll give it to you. But actually determining what the future of your organization looks like from a people strategy is huge right now. And actually get in a war room with your leaders and say, what do we want this to look like? And remembering why your organization exists, who you are as defined by your values. Keeping a strong plumb line right now. That's your character. Character, what you will do when nobody's looking. Character is what you'll do when you have to make the right choice, not the one that benefits you or benefits just the pure bottom line profits or shareholder returns. I think those are real. You're going to see some of the companies that rebound well are those who have an army of people who say, we're with you heart and soul of the mission and the purpose and why we exist as an organization. And lastly, enhancing your culture and assess engagement. So to enhance your culture, saying, who are we as an organization? What are our values? Bring that to the forefront. And then assess engagement. So where are you at? Where really caring for the individual, kind of that work-life balance, the challenges that we face right now, everybody kind of figuring out if they can work remote and are they working remote and who's doing what, who's busy helping the kids out, who's actually getting performance done and working and being productive. But looking at the levels of engagement right now, looking at levels of burnout right now, looking at levels of mental health and wellness right now, all of those tie into engagement, being gracious with your team members, and being really clear on expectations and the way forward. So leadership in crisis, absolutely critical. Moving on here, I want to talk about a little story back from companies that have shifted and adapted in crisis. Not really so much crisis in the way you may think historically, like the crisis that we're in right now, but asking the question, preface is asking the question of where's the talent market going? So we've been in the recruiting industry, essentially. Titus Talent has 80% of what we do really is passive candidate headhunting. And so every time we help a company with their critical hires, we say, okay, could this role be remote or mobile or people work from home or whatever you want to call it? And the amount of people who've always said historically, no, absolutely not. Obviously, the next question is why? Does it have to be on? Well, it has to be on site because we have so much going on in the office space here and in our corporate place and a corporate hub. And they've just not had an awareness of how we can manage remotely. So there's a shift that's happened. Everyone's been forced to go stay at home and safe at home and self-isolate. And we're figuring out how and what roles can actually we be practically working remote. A load of you have gone through that. And so it's been a pleasure to help and advise on some of the best practices that we've learned over the years. But now I was sitting in a group of peers, probably 15 to 20 executive CEOs of companies who had all shifted to some type of a remote wherever they could. And every one of them said that that we come out of this trial and crisis, they will definitely be shifting to more of a remote work environment where it fits. And I was like, wow, that is going to hugely change the workforce dynamic going forward post-COVID. And so these companies are understanding how they can do communication, how they can manage, how they can engage, how they can develop people with all the technology that's out there. And it gives the flexibility, the freedom, and there's performance management done remotely now. It's amazing. The reason I'm saying this is this. Back in what was it? I don't know what year, I think it was 2001. We had this great story where the executive team of Netflix show up in Dallas, in Texas, with a Blockbuster executive team and presented this, hey, we have this mail-in DVD or mailing DVD system set up. People can order online. The technology is there online. We're doing this shipping DVD thing, but we even believe beyond shipping and mailing DVDs, the future is streaming online, but the web's not fast enough yet, but it will be there. And here's our wonderful system in place. And they got essentially, they said, well, Blockbuster said, what do you want to sell it for? And they said $50 million. And they were laughed out of the rooms just as a flash in the pan type stuff, because people like to show up at the Blockbuster video on the Friday night, and they like to sit there and touch and feel DVDs and VHSs and whatever. You remember the thing, if you grew up in the early 80s and you're taking your kids there, and it's like a nightmare trying to decide what movie to pick. and then you have to return it 48 hours later. But Blockbuster loved the old way of doing things because they believed that was the best way. Here they are right now, 2010, Blockbuster goes bankrupt, closed its doors in 2013. 2014, Netflix is valued at $20 billion. 5-6 years later, 2020, is now valued at $202 billion, and Blockbuster is no more. It's one of the reasons why I carry around with me in my wallet. Yes, I still carry my Blockbuster video card. It is completely useless from the sense of renting a video. Don't worry, I don't go to Blockbuster anymore. There isn't one. But I think actually Bend, Oregon just closed theirs last year. It was more of a museum, I think. But I keep it with me as a reminder that I must adapt or die. I must be continuously aware of the future of talent and the future of business. And if not, I'm going to find myself caught like Blockbuster, laughing at something that seems like it may be a fad, and be very, very aware of the new generation coming up and the way they think and the way they behave in the workforce. So teeing up right now, Kaylee is one of our directors at Titus, has been with us. She's a veteran in the industry of talent. And just take it away, Kaylee. Share some of your wisdom and insights on these things that will be useful for people.
Thank you, Jonathan. Hello, everyone. Today, I want to focus a little bit on the 3 keys to help your business come out on top during these turbulent times. So as we know, communication is key. We have to communicate, we have to recalibrate to establish our priorities, and we need to do a team analysis. So we'll start with communication. So I would recommend using a variety of means. Everyone responds and it works for different people. So emails, conference calls, Zoom, text messages. We need to make sure that we're addressing concerns and that we're present and intentional with all of our interactions. We need to respond to people's ideas and feelings and respect them and know that this is a two-way street and we're all adjusting to this new normal right now. So I think it's really important that you let people express themselves and you allow for feedback. Probe and take it to the next level and show that you're actually listening to them. I believe it's really important to have transparency around what you're doing. Communicate often, be consistent. It's okay to over communicate. I know at Titus, we typically have a 1-hour call once a week with our entire company where we share ideas, successes, and right now we're doing that twice a week. And I think that's working really well. It gives people a chance to voice their questions, concerns, thoughts. So maintaining focus is also really important. We need to be present and focus on the task at hand. We need to let go of some of that control and let everyone do what works for them in the time provided while we're all juggling so many other commitments right now. Encouraging innovation and creativity will be really important as it has been the last couple of months, and even as we go through, the country reopening. I think it's also important to make sure that we keep meetings on track and productive. Again, everyone's very busy and juggling a lot of different tasks, and maybe kids at home, pets at home, and or parents at home, right? So remember just to be productive and aware of everyone's time. Lastly, on this issue, I would say inspiring. My mom always told me that this too shall pass, and it's a line that I use all the time. Whatever stage you're in of your life or, the current state right now with this pandemic is this will pass. So we need to believe in our employees and they need to believe in us. And also same with our clients. We need to believe in our clients and be there to support them and create a safe, welcoming place to work and foster trust. I think it's also really important to communicate a future vision of the company, and group thinking is really important. So no one's more important to make a decision. It doesn't need to come from the CEO and president. It can come from all different aspects. And I know at Titus, everyone's opinion is really valued here. And I think it gives everyone a sense of buy-in and true importance of working for an organization. So one of the quotes that I have used, managing and leading organizations for many years is, great things in business are never done by one person. They're done by a team of people. And now that's so much more true than ever before. So moving on, we're going to go to recalibrating to establish priorities. So what should stop and what shouldn't? So what's essential versus non-essential? Those words will never be the same again, right? We're all going to hear those words a little bit differently now. But stop the non-essentials, and perhaps let's boost the marketing budget and put money into other things. In my opinion, I think performance reviews are maybe something that they don't need to happen in the same fashion. Maybe recommend a supportive conversation to make sure the employee is engaged, and depending on the business, how they will flex. We personally here use predictive index, so it can help with growth opportunities, and it shows relationships, cautions and strengths, and maybe how they are going to react to certain situations and how we can best manage them through this time. So what's important now is that we establish, that we analyze our current strategy, and we do what we need to do to change and improve and experiment and not be afraid to try different things and make mistakes, because it shows that we're stepping out of our comfort zone and that we're taking risks. I think optimizing right now what is working for people and pushing that to for the rest of the organization to use. I may recommend flexing and offering new products or services to meet some of your clients' needs. Maybe offer incentives to them. Again, at Titus, we're offering some team executive sessions and sales team analysis to help companies get through this difficult time. Being resilient and flexible is so important. We have to adapt to being flexible with a remote workforce. We've had no choice. We were forced into it. I think it's really important that companies see that it's possible for people to be productive during this time. I think a lot of companies just assume that if someone's working at home, they're cooking dinner, they're doing their laundry, they're not necessarily working, where you may find that in some of your roles, people are actually more productive at home with less distraction. So as long as you have a routine and everyone can set up a safe working place free of distractions, I think you'll find that it could be really beneficial for your organization. So, the big question is goals, right? Will goals change? Absolutely, they are going to change. It's inevitable that they'll change. We have to make sure that everything is realistic during this time and shift our goals to short-term versus long-term goals, and being cautiously optimistic about the goals that we are setting. And people need to be creative in how we use our group to think about the goals and moving forward. So your sales, everyone has a sales organization in their company. The sales revenues right now are crazy. I mean, throw those out the window. They're not realistic, likely, for most organizations anymore. So how can we keep people, the anxiety low, reduce that anxiety around the people performance issues as we go through this? So assessing your strengths and weaknesses and your team analysis is also critical right now. We need to maximize our talent and share that common ground that we're all in. And we need to identify those needs and drives of each person and share those successes from others, and be really resilient and flexible to what everyone is going through. I truly believe that taking care of yourself and prioritizing your health and wellness is important. And I know at Titus that's something that our executive team preaches all the time, about taking care of yourself so you can be a better worker. Thinking outside the box and thinking of ideas to reinvent and come out stronger from this. Unfortunately, it's a time we want to maximize talent, but it's also a time that we're going to see some gaps. And I hate to say it, but it's a time that maybe some people need to go, and they just can't rise to the occasion. And we need to improve the unproductive and delegate tasks to someone that can handle more. Some people just aren't equipped to handle the stress of what we're going through right now, and they just completely shut down. They can't do it. They feel overwhelmed, and their workload is less, but they just can't even seem to get that small to-do list done. So have someone else take those on. Have a person that their strength is handling a lot of stress and dealing with trauma. Let them take on more for that other employee, and it's okay. Let's find another area for the person who can't handle it. Let them do something else. Not everyone's going to adapt the same. And just be aware, is there a disconnect between expectations and the delivery, and find a balance. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You do what's worked in the past and go with it. Most importantly, and lastly, would be creating a strong bond and relationship. To me, that is the most important thing. Rapport, relationship is what makes me tick, and I feel like it's important for obviously your family, but also with your clients, with your colleagues. And we're all adjusting to this new kind of busy, and we need to be there for our people and our clients in good and bad. And we need to stay close to our key relationships that share ideas and content and successes and failures. And, remember that this will pass, and the team building ideas and bonding that we do during this time is critical. I'd recommend some competitive events virtually, or do something to keep your team engaged and try to have fun during this unforeseen time. So in conclusion, we have to adapt by over-communicating, recalibrating, adjusting, and focusing on relationships. Some relationships need a bit more coaching, which leads me to Tim Hagen, who will be discussing some coaching tools with you today.
Hi, everybody. This is Tim Hagen from Progress Coaching. And one of the things that we do is we go into companies and we teach managers how to coach and how to build engagement. And I thought both Jonathan and Kaylee brought up some really important points. And so when we think about why the crisis has taught us the value of coaching, I want you to think about a scenario. The number one objection we get, and Kaylee brought it up and so did Jonathan, we have to adapt, we have to thrive, we have to be flexible, we have to change. In our business, often we hear from managers, boy, coaching would be nice to do if I had time. So I want you to think about two managers for a second. You've got a manager who's engaged, scheduling time with his or her people. They're really productive. They're learning their people's strengths. They have their nuances. They know their pitfalls. They know their strengths. And then maybe you've got a second manager, and that second manager hasn't been spending time with his or her people. And the crisis hits. And all of a sudden now we've got to work remotely. What do? How do they pick up the conversation? Or better yet, how do they start the conversation? So when we think about coaching, I'd like to give you two thoughts for you to write down. Coaching is a form of communication. It is a different form of communication. It requires practice. Let me give you an example of why it's a form of communication. You don't go home and ask a coaching question of your spouse and say, what are your thoughts on a movie tonight? You ask, do you want to go to a movie tonight? So coaching is about learning about your people, and Kaylee brought up listening, active listening. Do you state back what somebody says to you? Do you really know your people? Do you leverage their strengths? And then number two, think about the following statement. Conversations make cultures. The way we converse is about our culture, and Jonathan brought it up best. You cannot put trust, integrity, communication up on a wall as your value principles if you do not execute them. So when we hear the term resilience, again, Kaylee brought that up, and I love that. And then Jonathan brought up care 7 times in his introduction. So think about those words. And I'm going to give you a really cool coaching lesson. Do not assume that everybody knows what those things mean. So there's a great technique you can offer by asking people, when you hear the word resilience, Dan, what goes through your mind? So Sue, when you hear the word flexible and change, what goes through your mind? How do you define that? Don't assume everybody has the same definition. So as we're getting out of this crisis and we're going to thrive, you really have a choice. You either walk out of it, jog out of it, or sprint out of it. Choose sprinting. And the way you sprint is much like what Jonathan said. You have to sprint through your people. And the best thing you can do is to get on the same page, not because you say so, but make sure you define these things. Define the things that you need to do. Don't assume everybody understands what flexibility and change means. If you define them, and then you ask people to illustrate the 3 or 4 points we need to take, we need to maneuver, we need to execute to support that definition, you're going to be ahead of the competition because everybody's in congruence with one another. The second thing is think about the nature of conversations that we have. And so when you think about the way you care about people, and Jonathan brought it up, that's our new brand. So we hear the term empathy all the time now, integrity, transparency. Those are not things you can push a button and say, oh, by the way, Jonathan, you got to be empathetic. You will probably have managers who have an opportunity to improve. Define what empathy is. How do they show caring? What are the actions and behaviors that support that definition? Then you're going to be ahead of the competition. Yet a lot of the time we say, you know, guys, we got to show people we're transparent. What does that mean? And I promise you, your leadership team, your employees will have vastly different interpretations. They will emotionally interpret differently. And so all of these things will conjure up opportunities for each and every one of us. The second thing is we talk about strengths, and Kaylee brought it up a couple times. Think about strengths, and I want to give you 2 statistics that are really valuable. When we think about leveraging people's strengths, right? How often in the corporate world does somebody call somebody in the office and say, Kaylee, I need to see my office right away? What's the employee's first response? Now, every time I ask that question when I do public speaking or I do a webinar, I never hear, oh, good, my promotion's here. Typically what you hear is, uh-oh, what did I do wrong? Why is that? Because we are a very, to a certain extent, corrective action society. When we see something that's wrong, we got to fix it. And I think Kaylee said it best. We got to show people we care. So we've got to transition managers, some of our managers, from correcting and fixing to inspiring and motivating and leveraging strengths. How do we do that? It's easier said than done. Coaching is a different language that needs to be practiced. The Gallup organization reports one of the best statistics. People engage 8 times more when we lead with people's strengths. Yet, every time I ask that question, what happens when someone calls you into the office in terms of a boss? What do we typically hear? Or what is our first impression? It's usually, uh-oh, what did I do wrong? So think about a technique called dovetailing. Jonathan, here are the 3 things I love about working with you. You're inspiring, you're motivating, and the other thing I love is you really have a great command of our products. And get rid of the word but. And I would love to add time management to that. Hearing that, what goes through your mind? Now that's a technique of a strength-based coaching conversation. I don't say it to sound boastful. I say it because very few managers do it. What do we typically do? Dan, you're doing a great job, but, but is the great verbal eraser for all the good things people are doing. This is a critical time to get the language right. So one of the things that Titus does that I love is they do an analysis through predictive index, and they talk about the head, the heart, the briefcase. I'm going to share this with you. I've run probably since this crisis about 30 virtual sessions for clients. Every one of those clients from different teams, every single session, somebody's made a comment close to the following: I really thought I knew my people. See, this is conjuring up a different conversation, everybody. And by the way, we're going to get zoomed out. So we got to maximize those conversations. And the way you maximize those conversations is you ask questions and you listen. You don't just listen for words. You listen to understand. We hear it all the time. Are you listening to respond or are you listening to understand? So think about teaching your managers active listening. You want to build trust? Look at somebody and say, Dan, here are the 3 things I hear you're saying that you're potentially stressed out about and fearful. Is there anything potentially I missed? I promise you, everybody, that is a game changer. That completely changes that manager and employee relationship in a matter of minutes. How often, when we're talking to people, do we hear the following? Dan, that's a good idea, but, and I might be trying to help Dan. My intentions are admirable, but I just dismissed Dan. Wasn't my intention, but I created a perception. And I think Kaylee said it so well. We have to show people we care. That is not a button on our leaders' bodies that we just push. It takes practice, it takes education, it takes training. And so again, I go back to some of the work that Titus does, the head, the heart, and the briefcase. If you haven't looked into predictive index and their analysis and their assessment tool, it's awesome because you really can pinpoint who your people are, how to approach them, know what their strengths are, know how to navigate those conversations, and that's some of the work they do. And that is such a critical component during this time. The other thing is, now that we're virtual, let me share this with you. And I'm going to start off with a quick story. Virtual presents us huge opportunities. It is not just having people work at home. We have huge opportunities with virtual. Here's why. When we're virtual, we can capture conversations. I have a publicly traded company in the agricultural world. They're always on farms. Guess where they're doing their sales presentations? In Zoom. Now we get to hear what they're saying, how they're representing their products. We have a wonderful opportunity to find out what they're doing well, and by the way, leverage some opportunities for improvement. That is where we can capture things. The same thing is happening with coaching and leadership. We're hearing people how they lead. So during this time, people either step forward or they step back. Nothing stays the same. We're either moving forward or we're moving back. The virtual world allows you to capture that. A salesperson's never going to come back to your office and say, Jonathan, I got to tell you, I cannot negotiate and my ability to handle price objections is awful. And by the way, I burped in the meeting. They are not going to tell you that stuff. What they're going to do is come back and say, that guy was kind of a jerk. His budget was cut. They're not a good client for us. Now, I'm only using that as a frame of reference. The second thing is, when we talk about change, you're never going to have someone come into your office and say, Dan, I got to tell you, I'm stagnant. I could really use some uncomfortable change. And if you could maybe have some role playing to get me out of my comfort zone and really make me uncomfortable, that would be awesome. Most people fight change. So I'm going to teach you a really cool technique. When you're working with people, frame out their reactions, steer them in the right direction without telling them what to do. Here's how you do that. You ask what is called a self-actualized question. So Dan, what are you going to do to successfully embrace this change? And how could I help you? It's a what question plus a success imperative. Most of us will say, Dan, you really need to embrace change because, things are changing. They know that. Help them discover and look at things from different perspectives, and it'll put you in a really good frame of reference. So when we think about communication, think about why communication is a form, or coaching is a form of communication. Think about the following 5 words. We share opportunity, perspective, and observation. Get rid of the word but and insert the word and. Your language and your interactions will dramatically change. The other thing is when you hear the word...
You say those again, Tim? You say them again?
Sure. We share opportunity, perspective, and observation. Jonathan, I think we have an awesome opportunity to improve, and I'd love to share with you a couple perspectives where we could do that. Versus, Jonathan, I'm really frustrated because one of the things that you're not doing well, we have to talk about the caring and approach people, not just with a theory. And I thought Kaylee said it best. You have to really practice the execution of caring. The other thing is, I go back to one fundamental thing. If you have managers and leaders who are not engaging in scheduling time, silence is a form of coaching. Jonathan says it best. You have A players. They're also watching how the B players are being treated and cultivated. Do not let silence be your comfort zone. People's minds are wandering. Silence is very, very scary. So think about that as you go forward. So one of the things that Kaylee said, and I'm looking down at my notes, that intentional, trust, purposeful. She mentioned listening. I would insert active listening. How do we go about getting our leaders there? We have to practice. We cannot just assume. Don't assume. And that's where the virtual world provides you an awesome opportunity to do so. So when you think about empathy, and going to the last slide, there's 4 key things. Empathy, care, thoughtfulness. People don't want to be told what to do exclusively right now. They want to follow our leadership, but we also have to find out how they're feeling. And you can only do that by asking. I was in a meeting, a virtual meeting, where someone said, I'm scared. My husband just got furloughed. And I literally heard a leader don't worry about it. Don't be scared. She was scared. And I looked at the leader and I kind of interrupted and I said, wait a minute. I said, why are you scared? She said, I have a kid in college. This is terrifying. I said, well, why else are you scared? And I just kept her talking. I said, what could we do to mitigate that fear? She said, probably nothing. I said, would you mind if I check back in with you and just continued the conversation? She said, I would love that. Now everyone thought, wow, you did a really good coaching job with her. I said, no, I was actually coaching the leader who told her not to worry about it. So we have to show empathy, but practice it. What are the questions? Care. How do we show people we care? I have a client at the Howard Company. A leader of his team drove around and dropped off thank you cards during this crisis. Guess who they sell to? The restaurant industry. Have they been clobbered? Absolutely. You talk about thoughtfulness. I just did calls with all his people the last couple days. All of them are saying, oh my gosh, Gary's been a fantastic leader. I'd go through a wall. So think about that. Would they have said that 60 days ago? So it goes back to what Jonathan said. And it's how do we leverage this time? How do we extend our brand 10 years out? So I'll leave you with this closing comment. I go back and I lived through this. And this is a cliche, it's a concept, it's a term. But I want you to think about adopting it in your own way. Help people feel good about getting better. Help people feel good about getting better. And I think that will serve you really well. And if you help your leaders understand and define what empathy is at your company, how we show caring, what is really good leadership thoughtfulness, you're going to be ahead of the competition. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Tim. That's fantastic. Well, for those of you coming here today wondering what am I going to get from this, there are some gems in there. I was taking notes as well. Always looking to be a better leader of people and helping bring people along on a journey and tying them into the goals, the mission, the purpose of why we exist. We are a high performance company. We've never not hit our goals. Every single person in our organization has a number and everybody hits their number. It's called, it's your job. And that's how we look at it. But we really say, listen, here's what we need you to do. And here's what we're going to do for you. We're going to take care of you. We're going to put our people first and help you navigate this journey. And like many companies, we took a hit at the beginning of this crisis. I'm so thankful we're bouncing back right now and companies are realizing is a great talent opportunity. But one of the things we've seen as a difficult thing to get their hands around, companies to get their hands around over the years is this thing called culture. What's going on with culture? And then the sort of the newer word engagement, and can all seem a little bit fluffy. What does this really mean? But does it tie to performance? Does it actually tie to a greater sense of output or loyalty and things like that? The answer is yes, but you've got to diagnose it. You wouldn't go to the doctor and they just say, I'm really sorry, ma'am, you are sick. And that's it. You'd be like, with what? I'm like, it's just, you're sick. It's actually really bad. You're really sick. And that's how people sometimes talk about culture. You ever say like, that culture sucks. Or our culture sucks. I hate this about our culture. It just stinks, a terrible culture. And you hear these kind of words thrown around. Go, what do you mean by? Or on the opposite of that is, we have great culture. We hear a lot of executives and leadership teams describe their culture. It's a great culture. It's a great culture. I mean, what makes it a great culture? It's just a great culture. It's like family. Well, that's not a good description of culture because some people's families are psycho. So let's not use that description. What do we mean? How are we actually diagnosing culture? What are our strengths? What are our areas of opportunity? And if culture is that important, if engagement is that important, how the heck am I supposed to diagnose it? So this is where a lot of companies are at, and they're saying, okay, oh shoot, if I'm going to rebound from this, I need to have a people strategy, but also first and foremost, I need to diagnose what's going on. I need to diagnose where people are at. I need to diagnose in a way that can actually help me understand what's going on with my people. So what we're doing here is this. We've developed a beautiful diagnostic tool. Okay, it's a self-diagnostic tool, but it'll help lead you and guide you through 9 different areas. Very simple, take you 5 minutes or so, 9 different areas, and actually spits out basically, here are your biggest areas of opportunity to invest in. Okay, 0 obligation. We just want to offer it as a gift. When we shifted at the beginning of this sort of 7 weeks ago, we just said, oh my gosh, what are our strengths as an organization and what can we offer companies out there, people that we've worked with? This is an area that we believe is a strength for us, our diagnostic tool, not only a self-diagnostic, but we use some outside third-party companies that put us very, very high rank on engagement and strength of culture and our character. So it is a strength for us, and we feel shamelessly proud of that. But we also want to offer it to you if we can actually be bring some counsel, some advice, and help navigate through this. So we're offering what we call a talent checkup that really looks at these 9 areas. So if you want to grab actually whip out your phone. I know Dan told you to turn off your phone. Open up your camera. Dan, you can skip to the next slide. All righty. Here's how it works. Your camera is open. Point it at your screen. Point your camera at the screen right there. You see that QR code, zoop, and you probably see a little website opens up. You click on that website. Have you done it? So open your camera, point it at the screen. It'll open a website. You'll see a little form right there. 2 things. First one, we want to know basically what you thought of this. 2 things we've got here. The assessment, there's 2 assessments which we're going to give you opportunity. One is the talent optimization, really kind of the talent diagnostic area assessment. We're going to send you a link to that no matter what. Everyone gets that. That's one of our gifts to you. Take you 5 or 6 minutes. The other one is a predictive index assessment. I'll just tell you about that. It's something that we partner with this company, Predictive Index, over the last few years. It has been just a powerful tool to understand people. And not just at a broad brush of people, but every individual. When I said care for people, I want to understand what every individual in my organization, how they think, how they tick, what their needs, what their drives, what their motivators are, where their fears are. And this tool helps me understand people, and I can play to strengths, not weakness management, but strength management. Just the things that Tim's talking about here. And so drawing out the gold of our people. And so if you leave those check boxes on there, we'll make sure we get those 2 assessment surveys over to you, and beautiful data. The results will come through to you. And then if you'd like to, we'll navigate through how to play to those strengths in your organization. Lastly, is the other checkbox. If you would like to speak to Tim Hagen, Tim has been an absolute gift to our organization over the last 5 years. One of the areas we realized we have a lot of newer managers. Over half the workforce are millennials and Gen Z right now. And so we've got this brain drain going on of people with years of experience managing. Doesn't mean they're good at it, but years of experience doing it. Leaving the workforce, 10,000 boomers a day. We recognize, hey, we need some help coaching. We want to create a coaching culture. So we brought in Tim and his group and all of the tools that they have and resources and platforms, beautiful stuff that's helped us get to where we are today with a highly engaged, highly sort of coaching culture. So if you'd like to have a meeting with Tim, highly recommend that. Another gift to you, no obligation, no costs. So I want to say a massive thank you. We're here ahead of time. I love giving back the gift of time. So go and enjoy the next 10 plus minutes or so here. But if you want to be a company that rebounds well from this crisis, you must have a people strategy. You must have a people strategy that puts care and a customized care of your people. If you want them to give full output and their full commitment, loyalty, and over and above effort for the win and for the purpose and the mission to be accomplished. So let's create a better world, transform our companies by transforming our people. That's how we're going to get there together. It is not pour us better together. No, it is let's be victorious together. Let's come out strong, and let's take advantage of this time. Take it of all of the things that are going on. There is opportunity for us to take advantage and come out ahead in these times. Let no good crisis go to waste. Thanks everyone for joining. On behalf of Kaylee, myself, Tim Hagen, and Progress Coaching. Thank you, Dan Roma, for emceeing today. Please do reach out if you have any questions or you want any help follow up, or if you didn't get the link after, we'll be in touch. Thanks so much. Have a great weekend.